Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Dan Tomaszewski with Everything MSP, and we've got our good friend David Gugick here from MSP 360. David, how you doing today?
I'm great. No, I'm not great. I'm sick as a dog, but I am going to do this webinar,
You
and I'm
got
going
it.
to do it despite the nose blowing and congestive sounds I'll be making throughout.
Yeah, it's crazy. We both happen to be sick at the same time. You had been doing some traveling. I have been local here in Michigan, and um, yeah, just hit me over the weekend. Not real fun, but
Yeah,
it
me
is.
too. Same thing over the weekend.
Yeah. So we are here today, and we are going to talk about ransomware. We've got a prepper guide, a doomsday prepper guide. We'll cross the doomsday out there,
Yeah,
but
it sounded too doom and gloom, so I crossed it out.
yeah. We don't need
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So, man, I tell you, ransomware. What lots of scariness out there. Lots of things to know about. But before we get started, Dave, you want to give a introduction for yourself? Tell us who you are.
Sure.
Um,
David Gugick, I'm the VP of Product Management over at MSP 360, and I'll have a one slide about the company if you're not familiar with our products that we offer the MSP community. So I won't talk about them now. I'll just wait for later. But I've been in IT for a long time, my entire career. I went to school for engineering back in the day, and I've done everything from software development, database design, to mostly product management now.
nice, nice. Tell us one really cool thing about David.
Oh, I have no cool things about me. I need a new car. I think I want a new car, but I really want a more garage space.
There
So
you
I
go.
think before I get a new car, I need to buy a new house,
There you go.
which is sad, but I would really love a three-car garage because I like cars.
Yeah,
Like a small house with a three-car garage.
there you go.
So if anybody knows where I can get one of those,
you,
let me
you
know.
you just have to buy a tiny house and then add three stalls to it.
That's what I really would like. Yeah.
There you go.
Especially since I'm in the Northeast and I don't want to leave them outside. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So that's cool. I like cars too. My little known fact about me or unknown fact about me is I used to play the drums, but not very well. So there's my thing for
Do you
that's
still
cool.
have a drum kit? Sir?
I don't. I got rid of it about 6 years ago. I had a electronic set that I had bought, and my wife basically told me since you never play it, I should just get rid of it.
That's probably what I should do with my beer making paraphernalia. I used to make a lot of beer at the house because I like
Very cool.
the science behind it and crafting your own recipes, but I haven't done it in about 2 years now. So I think it's time I packed up everything or repurposed it.
Well, that's what happens when we're in IT, right? Everybody, we got to have some kind of a hobby outside of the hustle and bustle of IT. So,
It's true.
with that being said, let's kick it off. Let's start talking about the fun and exciting world of ransomware.
All right. So it's not fun and it's not exciting. Well, it could be exciting.
Be
What
yeah,
I wanted to do today was do a real quick prepper guide, not on how to prevent ransomware from finding its way into your organization or your customers, because I know you've already done that. There's a ton of security products out there, EDR type solutions that are designed to prevent ransomware from getting in. And I talk to MSPs all the time, and I know you're constantly reviewing what's out there to try to find the best solutions for you and your customers. So I know that work's being done, but what I wanted to do was concentrate a little bit more on the softer side, how you can best be prepared for a ransomware recovery should one happen. I know many of you have probably experienced over the years or know somebody that has experienced a ransomware attack. And we often say it's just not a matter of if, but a matter of when you or your customers are going to be hit. And so today we're going to concentrate on some of the things that can make you more prepared for recovering from that type of a ransomware attack. And we'll cover things like high-level overview of the NIST cybersecurity framework, which we'll get into, which it's some great free resources from the U.S. government. Um, and the idea being that preparation is really going to be key to a fast recovery and to be able to get your customers up and running again. And that's the part that I find most MSPs struggle with is what do we do now that somebody's been hit by ransomware? So there's a lot of material here. There are a bunch of slides at the end that I'll show you with useful links for things like phishing simulators and ransomware decryptor sites that are out there. It's by no means a comprehensive list, and I haven't even vetted most of these sites, but I wanted to give you links that you can use. You may add them to lists that you already keep. Definitely have a closer look at the slides at the end, which I'll go over briefly since I think we'll have enough time. So what I wanted to start with today was kind of the indicators of 2021 around ransomware, kind of like, what things looked like in 2021. And really discuss whether or not things are getting better or if there's any good news. What I will say is that the malware actors out there who are creating this ransomware are getting better at avoiding detection. Their techniques may be getting more sophisticated, but the tools eventually catch up. So I would say in most respects, they seem to be in lockstep with us and us with them. It's an ongoing battle. As they improve, kind of we improve. Now, attacks were up 105% in 2021. These are some numbers from a Sonic Wall report, which I think I have linked at the end in case you want to read it. It's fairly comprehensive. And those numbers have tripled since 2019, with somewhere an estimated about 620 million ransomware attacks this past year. Maybe not successfully, but that many, at least, attempts. And what we've learned is that phishing is directly related to later stage ransomware. What that means is that, phishing attacks, whether it's targeted phishing, spear phishing, these are the emails that may be targeted to employees at your customers, pretending like there's somebody internally trying to get from them credentials or get them to click on links to provide access to the network. They tend to be directly linked, these types of phishing attacks, with ransomware eventually getting on. Now, targeted attacks are up. We know that the ransomware creators out there tend to be targeting supply chains. We've seen that. Big businesses, infrastructure. We saw that with the Colonial Pipeline. MSPs, sadly, right? We know that those of us in the MSP space are now targets because, why hit individual companies when you could potentially hit an MSP that has access and direct links to potentially hundreds of other companies. So these ransomware creators are looking more closely at who to hit and really who's most likely to pay. And they tend to be the bigger businesses. We know that they're asking for higher ransoms and longer downtime. I always used to tell this story back in the day about a friend of mine that I've known for a long time who's a dental hygienist who called me up. This is going back almost 3 years now. Called me up one day from work to let me know that they can't access any of their patient records, that everything's been encrypted. There's a weird message on the screen, and they weren't even getting backup from their MSP at the time. And they had to pay the ransom and hope for the best. But the ransom back then was like under $500. It was almost nothing.
Wow. Yeah.
Compared to what we're seeing today, where it could easily be 5,000, 50,000 or more for small companies. So the ransoms are higher, and then the downtime is longer because of things like, the sophistication of ransomware. Ransomware is now no longer just encrypting data as soon as it's activated on an endpoint. What they tend to do these days, and you'll see some of this on the next slide, is start to infiltrate the entire network quietly, and also doing things like we see up there with double extortion threats, right? The double extortion threats are when the ransomware is looking around the network for data it can steal, data it can exfiltrate. With the goal being that, if you don't pay the ransom, we're going to release this important information. Could be important IP, just could be company information you don't want to get out there. There's no guarantee, obviously, even if you paid the ransom, that the data wouldn't get out. But they're doing it anyway because they want to threaten the release of that data in hopes that you'll pay. But they're also doing things like triple extortion threats, which are even more kind of egregious. So they're sifting through the data, they're deep mining the data as they get it, and they're demanding ransoms from those who have really the most to lose. So imagine a psychotherapy provider providing therapy to hundreds and hundreds of patients, and they steal all of the patient records and notes from therapy sessions, which tend to be very private and people
Right.
would not want to get out. So they can now target not only the psychotherapy provider, but they can also target the patients. Pay
Right.
us a little bit of money, or we're going to release all of your therapy sessions to the world. And that's even crazier to think that they're doing it, but they are. Um, Ransomware as a service is something that exists. It's kind of crazy. It's not new for 2021. It's been around a while, but it's a real thing. And what it is rather than everybody who's creating malware having to be really smart about how they create this stuff and design it, some of these ransomware creators are renting out their ransomware. So you can go to certain sites out there and you could rent out a particular ransomware family if you wanted to, craft your own ransom note, and these services will take a percentage of all of the ransom that you collect without you having to write a single line of code. So now anybody can be a cyber criminal very easily without any of the know-how that would be required to write this stuff. So
That's
that's
just so crazy to think about, I mean, because and we joke about it from a perspective of it's like a franchise model. There's nothing funny about it, but I mean, they clearly are becoming more sophisticated and more advanced to be able to allow others to attack others and just extend that out, and more feet on the street to make it more difficult and just reach more people.
Yeah, it's your typical licensing model,
Yeah,
where you have something good and you realize, what, I could keep selling it myself, or I could just, license it to other people to sell and make some money off of them.
right.
I see some Q&A and chat. Do you want me to keep an eye on that, Dan?
Yeah, let me double check here. I think mostly just some comments right now.
Okay, all right, good. All
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So anyway, the top two security concerns really are ransomware and targeted phishing. And as I mentioned earlier, targeted phishing is when they might hit up Denise in receiving with an email that seems to be tailored to her from somebody who might be at the company in an effort to try to get them to go to a website and type in something that would give somebody access to it, where ransomware can then find their way on. So let me go to the next slide. What I wanted to show you here very briefly, right, was this is an Akamai. They did a kind of a review of Conti's ransomware and kind of what it does. And you might have to squint a little bit to see that, or download the slides later. But as someone who went to college, as I mentioned earlier, for engineering, I like to tinker. I find the forensics of this stuff pretty fascinating. I don't even know if this is the most sophisticated type of ransomware out there, but I like the idea. I like the design of how it kind of moves through an organization and the techniques it uses. So I find it fascinating from sort of an engineering perspective. As a Windows user, I find it a bit terrifying, honestly. I have security software, but I'm always worried that, if I'm not careful, or if there's a 0-day out there, that something could find its way onto my system. So really, what can you do to protect yourself? And that's, well, let's talk a little bit about the NIST cybersecurity framework. The NIST is a U.S. government organization, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they've done the work and designed a framework for customers to be able to better manage cybersecurity risks. They wrote it for themselves for internal use, but they released it. It's available to anybody who wants to review it. Many of you probably looked at it. Others have probably just heard of it. It's out there. There'll be links at the end. It's great reading stuff. There's a ton of information out there. The framework is voluntary guidance. That just means that, it's not a hard set of rules that you have to follow. You can pick and choose the ones that make the most sense for you and your organization. So not everything is going to apply, and that's fine. You just pick and choose the things that make the most sense for you and the types of customers you work with. Now, there's been some discussions, I think, in the past. I've heard some people say that there's been too much focus on the identify and protect sections, and that we need more focus on respond and recover. Yes, we're talking more about the respond and recover today, but I wouldn't say that there's been too much focus on identify and protect. What I would say is that maybe we just need a little more focus on respond and recover. You need to protect yourselves. You need the right security solutions in place. So the NIST framework is broken down into 5 sections. We're just going to hit them at a very high level here, just so you kind of understand what they are. Identify is kind of identifying your critical assets at your customers, and everything I talk about here applies to the MSP as well, because you need to protect yourselves just like your customers. So if I say your customers, that means also the MSP. So it's about identifying your critical assets, the stuff that makes the business run, maintaining a set of hardware and software inventory so you know exactly what's installed and what software is running. Assigning cybersecurity roles. This is the security that's out there. Who's assigning the security? Who has access to what? That kind of stuff. The protect piece, let me get there, is the next piece. That's about maintaining the delivery of services. It talks about things like least privileged access. That just means that if you have access to a particular service or a file share, that you don't have full access to it. If you don't need full access, if you just need a read-only access, that's what you have. If you don't need access to a particular service, you don't have access to it. We often hear about zero trust. We probably should have had a question out there about zero trust. Who's been successful in implementing zero trust? It's very difficult to implement, right? Really. That's really, you're doing things like 2FA to get anywhere, and you always have to verify and validate your who you are and authenticate everywhere you're going. It can be done, and certain businesses might need it more than others, but I like to think for those of us that can't really get to really true zero trust, that least privilege access is a good way to go. But protect also covers things like encrypting your data. That means in place, maybe using BitLocker in Windows. When it's transmitted to others, that means you're not doing anything over the internet that's not fully encrypted. And also, of course, with your backups. Your security solutions, like your EDR solutions, these are the products that all of you use and may frequently change, like I mentioned earlier, based on what features or costs are out there or the most recent reviews. Obviously, as MSPs, you're in the business of protecting your customers, but you need to be profitable, right? So you may be moving solutions based on what costs you can secure from these vendors, or maybe based on what features they provide. So that's entirely up to you. I know most MSPs tend to kind of move through different security products as they change or as pricing gets updated. Updating your operating systems. This is all the patch management that you get. Scanning for vulnerabilities during your vulnerability scans. And then training, which we're going to talk a lot about on an upcoming slide. Next piece is the detection piece. This is about the ability to identify cybersecurity events. Is something going on? Has your security software identified something, an encryption in process, or some software process that's moving through the network in a way that does not represent normal behavior for the network? Because you should be able to understand what normal behavior is, and either through logs or some other means be able to identify when something's going on that shouldn't be. But it also does include things like penetration testing, being able to identify unauthorized access when it happens and respond to it. And then really understanding the impact of any cybersecurity events should you be hit by ransomware. The fourth piece is the response piece. This is about knowing how to respond when there's a cybersecurity event. So what I usually recommend is test and update your response plans as needed. We're gonna talk more about it on the upcoming slides, the things you should be writing and documenting, and then the need to update them as things change. So this is the part where you're also coordinating with your internal and external stakeholders. These are going to be the people that, work with the service providers. This might be external organizations like government agencies or the FBI or police. If you're working with law enforcement, if there's a ransomware attack, or your lawyers, things like that. And the last piece is recover. This is about restoring systems so the business can get up and running again. It also includes the communication with the external stakeholders, which might mean, the lawyers or the customers of your customers if they need to be notified. And it also involves testing your recovery plans and updating as needed. And also PR, because, if you're attacked as an MSP, or your customers are attacked as and their customers are then at risk, then there may be a need to manage it through PR. And that may or may not be something you help your customers with, but it certainly would be something that you would be dealing with. So that's an overview of the NIST. Certainly more elaborate information, more detailed information than the links that you'll have at the end. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
So it's just so critical that we're planning ahead for this and being prepared with all of this, because if we wait until you've got a client that gets hit with a major ransomware attack to start pulling these pieces together, you're going to be so far behind the eight ball, because you are going to be the amount of pressure in the face of the client and trying to help them just first off understand what's happening, helping them through it. You are not going to have the time or the resources in the heat of the moment to try to pull all this together. The difficult thing is, a lot of times when it comes to planning, we're planning for things that we may have never experienced before. And you feel like, well, I'm not sure what I would do, but having some plan is better than having no plan. And it's going to go a lot further along than those scenarios where you're like, all right, I got to start doing some digging. I got to start from scratch. And just take the time to go through and develop that plan up front, even if you feel as if, it may not feel as solid as you want it to feel, because again, you haven't experienced it before, or if you haven't experienced it before, it may not feel solid. But that's just natural. That's how it's going to be. So, in right into the plan there as we're talking about.
Right. Well, yeah. I felt that was appropriate.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're talking about, is the preparation stage. And I agree with you. Not everybody's doing it. I can't tell you. I was gonna talk about this on the backup slide coming up, but I might as well mention it now since you're talking about it. I can't tell you how many customers that use our software reach out to us in the middle of an emergency because they've never run a restore before. They haven't documented the process. They don't know how to, do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And it's really important to prepare and document everything. The truth is, a lot of the information that you'll be documenting, with the exception of the specific services and the recovery kind of procedures for each of those specific services at your customers, which may be a little different customer to customer. But, your restore process will be, should be fairly identical if you're using the same software between your customers. So get that stuff documented. Don't rely on the vendor documentation. I always say that.
Right.
It's written, with our software, it's written by our people, right? Who really know the product really well. It's often much better to get it into your own words, written in your own hand, so you understand exactly what's going on. But the first piece that you need to do is create a cyber incident response plan, right? So you're ready. This is exactly what Dan was talking about. You want to do this in preparation to any cybersecurity incident like ransomware. And we talk about ransomware here, but it could be any kind of like malware that gets on the network. And again, do this for your MSP, so you know how to get your own MSP up and recovered. But you must do this for each customer as a part of the onboarding process and the periodic review. So the first thing you need to do is create your CERT. This is your cyber incident response team. If you're a small MSP, it might mean everyone. If you're a bigger MSP, works with different customers, it might be a different set of people. But these are the key players, along with their roles and responsibilities, that will respond to an incident. You'll want to clearly identify kind of which CERT members have authority to act and how to contact them 24/7. It's critical that you're able to get them at any time, because ransomware probably isn't going to decide to show up at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. It may show up at 1 a.m. on a Saturday. So you need to be able to contact your people and have backups if people are on vacation. Um, and that's really the second piece. So not only do you have that contact list, but you have your response personnel and partners. So you need to know who your cybersecurity partners are out there, like your backup partner, in case you need to get in contact with them, how to get in contact with them in the case of an emergency, who the equipment vendors are that you're using, or that maybe that your customers are using, so you can get in contact with them. If you're using specialized software at a dental business that you're covering, you need to be able to get in contact with them. So that stuff needs to be documented. And you're going to also identify which of your CERT team members have the responsibility to engage with each of these service providers, and they're going to have the authority to do so. And that's also important. Key documentation, business critical networks and systems. Again, do this for yourself, do this for your customer. You need to document the critical systems. Not only that, the credentials, and maybe more importantly, procedures for removing access. So if you're hit by ransomware and there's an attack in process, you need to know how to remove access to the system. I don't know, maybe it's pulling it off the internet, pulling it off the network. Maybe it's shutting down the service. Maybe there are ways to actually remove access to it. But also you need to have ways to provide temporary access to incident responders. So if you've removed access, eventually somebody's going to have to get back on, right, to start investigating what's going on. And so you'll need a way to provide access to any of the CERT team members which are getting on these systems. Outline your incident reporting requirements. This is going to depend on the severity of the incident, whether or not you're required to contact and report the incident to regulatory agencies, government officials, the FBI possibly, customers of your customer, or maybe even insurance providers if you or your customers have cyber insurance, or any of the third parties that are involved. Your technical response procedures really are where you're going to document how to investigate, contain, eradicate, and recover. And these are going to be very detailed. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to go into great detail exactly how to do all of these, but you're going to need to develop some response procedures about how to do that. And if you don't have the expertise, there's certainly a lot of people out there that do. So you may be in a position where you're contracting out with third-party security companies to help you with this, or at least help you get the procedures down in place. Legal response, everything should probably be coordinated under the guidance of your or your customer's legal team. Now, obviously, this is going to depend on the size of the customers you're working with, and maybe even the size of the MSP, whether or not you even have a legal team. But if the MSP is hit and potentially they have access to customer information, then you probably want the help of a legal team to make sure that as you respond, things are coordinated through your attorneys, because it's important not only to communicate, but know when to communicate and actually what you need to communicate. And then, of course, you're going to exercise the plan, you're going to train your staff, and you're going to update the plan regularly. So as services change at your customers, as your tools change, these plans will be updated as needed. So like I said, just imagine it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday and somebody's under attack. The last thing you want to be doing, like Dan mentioned earlier, is trying to figure out what to do at that point, because your response will be slow and likely you're going to have a very unhappy customer. So best to get this all documented in advance. You'll let me know if there are any questions coming in,
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah. In fact, I just wanted to throw out, if anybody has any questions, please either throw them in the chat or the Q&A. We'll be happy to answer any of those questions you have. Also, just a reminder, at the end of our event today, we will be giving away the Oculus. So
sure, I should have mentioned that. I apologize.
No, it's fine. Be sure to hang tight till the end. And one lucky winner will be getting that Oculus. So have a comment from Doug. They just moved 5 customers to MSP 360 in Wasabi. Been awesome. So I just wanted to.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So I appreciate that comment.
John will be. We will get a copy of the slides out to you as well. Just to let you know.
All right, so here's the part about customer training, cybersecurity awareness training. And I think you had a question. Do we have a canned set of questions? Can you
Yeah,
bring
we
that up, that
bring
poll?
up the first poll here.
So we'd appreciate it if you just answer this. This is, are you currently delivering cybersecurity awareness training? We're curious if you built it yourself internally, if you're outsourcing it, to a security vendor. Um, uh, Maybe you're not doing it yet, which is fine. Not everybody's doing it yet, but maybe you may be looking into it, and whether or not you have no plans, which I'm pretty sure is going to be pretty close to zero. So. All right. So, all right. No plans at this time. That's fine. Looks like most people, 43% of the respondents have outsourced it to a vendor. I see that a lot. There's a lot of companies out there that will do cybersecurity awareness training. And if you have to get it done, then it's easy to contract out. Now, it may be a way for you to make money if you end up developing it yourself. So certainly continue to look at the third parties that are out there. But if you feel like this is another way you can generate some revenue for your for your business through your customers by training them yourselves rather than paying, for a third party security and cybersecurity awareness training company, that may be something you could look into. Now, let me turn. Can I do the stop sharing on that?
Yeah.
Oops.
Yep. There we go.
I'll just let you do it so
Yep.
it moves off the screen.
Should be gone now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to close it over here. Okay. So what we know from most polls out there is that over 80% of data breaches are caused by employee mistakes, distractions, usually from home, through things like spear phishing. And if that's a real statistic, and I think it is, I've seen it reported as low as 82%, as high as 88% by some vendors that do security reporting out there. I think we can all agree that it's important to offer customers and train them. And I've already mentioned that it may be a way for you to generate additional revenue. But I will say that, having worked with a cyber insurance broker, we know that the cyber insurance requirements may actually require that there is phishing and security awareness training being delivered to the company for them to be able to get insurance. Because if there are that many breaches happening as a result of employee mistakes, then it stands to reason that the insurance carriers will want some training there. And there's a lot of ways they can get in. I just did I was learning a little bit about malicious QR codes. I had no idea QR codes could do so many things. I always thought they were just URLs.
Right.
Now they could open PDF files. They could play MP3s. This one up here, if you scan it, it would if the network exists. It does a connection to a network, right? So we see these kinds of QR codes all the times that stuck on the walls of retail establishments. We might see them on tables for restaurants. They're a good way for bad actors out there to just put QR codes out there. I mean, you can't tell by looking at it what it is, and if you scan it, this one over here, it'll try to take you to it'll try to connect you to a Wi-Fi WPA2 network with a password and a hidden name, and we'll try to connect you. So imagine, like, if I were at a Starbucks and I set up my laptop as a Wi-Fi hotspot with some software on it, and I just had these QR codes around on tables. Everybody would try to scan them and connect to them and not think twice about it. It's an easy way to get access to a PC.
I was recently reading up that the bad actors are actually making labels. Then they're going into various restaurants and on menus or on signs on tables and just putting them over the actual QR codes, and just a way to trick people, and scary stuff. Just one. QR codes are awesome, right? It's a great way to get people connected to something, but just like anything that's good, there's always a malicious, deceitful way of someone using it.
Yeah, I forget the name of the website I went to that helped me generate the malicious. I mean, it allows you to generate QR codes, right?
Right.
Any kind of QR code. I'll try to get that link later. It was interesting, but I had no idea that QR codes could be used for doing things like connecting to networks. I see them all the time, like you mentioned, at gas stations. They're usually stuck on the pump, and
Right.
I'll guarantee almost all of them have nothing to do with the gas station in general.
Right.
What would the QR code actually be?
Right.
So what should you be doing? You should be conducting regularly scheduled training to educate your customers out there. Um, these spear phishing attacks, these targeted phishing attacks, are going to target the employees. These are not IT people; they're just general users out there, right? Or just trying to get their job done, and they do the best they can. But they need to be trained to understand, what might be a phishing email, so somebody doesn't get unauthorized access and get credentials and then spread malware through an organization. So consider, if you're doing it yourself, you could do live training, you can do video training. I know most of you on this call right now on the webcast are contracting out, and that might just be, kind of interactive training that they get done. You may be doing it to check a box. The interactive training is better than nothing. It may not be the best out there. So I say always look to see if you can improve on that and make some money by training your customers. And then certainly have a way for new customers as they're hired, or as the malware and the cybersecurity awareness training changes, to redeliver this training, even annually. And nobody likes to go through this training, but I think it's important. Organization-wide phishing tests. Do phishing tests. This third-party software out there now for the MSP, in the MSP market, that will do things like phishing tests. Let you craft them. In fact, there's some free phishing simulators. I have links for it at the end if you feel like doing it yourself. Employees hate them, but I think they hate them more because what I've seen is that there's a lot of employers will let the employees know that they're going to be conducting some phishing tests. I don't know why they do that, but I see that a lot.
Right.
I say don't do that unless you have some absolute reason you have to be doing it. The idea is not to catch an employee and, make them feel bad. It's to educate, right? So, use these phishing simulators that are out there, whether they're free or paid ones, to try to get the employees or your customers to bite, right? And if they do, then you can educate them on what to look for. It's important. Password credential management. I hate to say it because I thought this was something that was long since gone, but the Post-it note password management solution is alive and well, sadly. I see it all the time with my friends who work for big companies, and they're still writing their passwords in notebooks on Post-it notes that are stuck right to the laptop in general. I see it all the time, and we all know it's terrible. If your customers do not have a credential management, password management solution that makes it very easy to generate, long, random complex passwords that they never need to remember, but they can get at it with sort of a master password that they can remember, then I think it's something you should definitely consider, because if they have to remember passwords, they're going to be writing them down. And I think that's terrible. So I see a lot of writing down, and I don't see enough password management out there. For somebody like me, I like to use something like KeePass. It's not cloud-based. I can keep the files privately. I can dump the encrypted database to my phone and use one of the free solutions out there. It's an open source standard available for a lot of platforms, but there's a lot of good cloud management, password management solutions out there that many of you are probably using already. So definitely continue to use them and try to avoid the Post-it notes. Work laptops are for work. I say that, and I know companies say that, but I don't know that it's that reasonable. It's also something I don't see much. I get emails from friends all the time that are clearly coming from their work laptops. I know a lot of people don't even have their own laptops that might use the work laptop for personal use as well. It might be their only computer at some point. But if they are going to use it for personal stuff, then, log what's going on, restrict certain websites, make sure you uh, train them well so they understand where not to go, right?
Right.
There are certain sites you shouldn't be going to. So there should be some, blacklisted sites and maybe even whitelist in there to keep them from going everywhere in the web if this is a work laptop. Just remember that anything that they pick up at home or from a coffee shop can easily be brought into the office, when they return or when they connect through the VPN, assuming the VPN is not always required. So VPN is important too. Home routers, that's another area I see MSPs really struggling with because we have all of these employees working from home, especially since the pandemic. And we don't really understand what's going on with these home networks. So we can certainly train them, but there may be some opportunities for MSPs to help their customers and the employees at your customers who are working from home make sure their networks are set up. So making sure things like, universal plug and play is turned off, making sure remote router administration is turned off, making sure the DNS settings are correct, that the router firmware is updated, right? Because there are, 0 days and security flaws that are reported all the time. And these routers will have their firmware updated, but also making sure that the routers themselves are still supported. You want to avoid having customers out there that are using routers that are no longer under direct support.
And I think too, a couple points, just, with the work laptops are for work. Just one point on that is we all know that there's going to be some carryover, some crossover of, doing some personal stuff versus work stuff. But then there's also, scenarios where you have someone that just leaves the computer open at home, unlocked, and, kids jump onto it and kids are using it. And, that's where we just need to educate clients about work from home. And, there are some things, obviously some perks of having the person or the business laptop and being able to use it at home, but there are also some things that should be off the table. And the other thing too is, you mentioned the home routers and such. I know most MSPs are focused strictly on commercial work because that's where obviously the most of the revenue and dollars are coming in, and are resistant to any kind of residential work. I think we have to bend the rules a little bit here as far as saying, it might not be traditional residential work. It's more work from home type work. And there are things that, there are opportunities to drive some additional revenue, maybe putting some additional hardware in or additional services that can assist them in securing their home environment, which is essentially their work environment.
Right.
So
And it may be something like, helping them buy the right kind of router that either replaces what they have, or if they're using something like a provided router from their service provider, like, Verizon's Fios, you could even
right.
plug a secondary router into one of the LAN ports and use that for local access. So I think there are things you can do, maybe even some revenue you can generate.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. And then obviously the last piece over here is just making sure that your customers know where to report suspicious phone calls or suspicious emails. If they can identify them and not react to them, that's great. But if you don't know about it, then you can't, improve the scanning or the filtering or make everybody aware that, hey, there's a targeted phishing attack going on at the company right now. If you see an email like this, don't respond to it if it happens to slip through. So they need to be able to report this stuff very easily. So there should be, security email that they can forward things to at the MSP, so you guys can, make whatever proactive decisions about that with the software you're using.
And while it, sometimes you feel like, oh, geez, another email from someone saying, is this legit? When, it really looks bogus. It might seem annoying, but that's a great thing because obviously we're here to be preventative and assist our customers. But, thank them for asking. I think a lot of times, if they feel as if, you're annoyed by them asking, then they're not going to ask ever again. and then that ends up being a bad thing. So just thank them for asking, even if it's a simple, yep, it's definitely something you can ignore and move on. It's not malicious. But thank you for checking. That goes a long way in giving them just the comfort and confidence that you've got their back.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about backup a bit. I realize this is kind of in our wheelhouse as MSP 360, but it's important. Everybody should be backing up. I'm sure everybody on the call is backing up your customers. Having solid backups may be your way out of a ransomware attack or customer's attack. So we always say, you don't back up to back up. You back up so you can restore. So here are the things I think you should at least be considering when you're backing up your customers, regardless of the solution you're using. It doesn't have to be us, obviously. Back up, if you can, to 2 locations, always encrypted, where one is offline. This is the old 3-2-1 backup principle. We know there are ransomware variants out there that will attempt to find and delete accessible backups. That means if there's something on a network share and there's access to it, then it will try to either try to encrypt those backups or delete them if it can identify them as backups. If you have your data offline or in the cloud, more likely, I think the cloud has become sort of the de facto standard for kind of offsite backups that are, I won't say that they're truly air gapped because they're accessible through APIs, but they're sort of air gapped in that they're not available through network access, right? You have to be able to authenticate into the cloud to get access to the backups. So get them offsite if you can, and the cloud's a great place. If you do want to truly lock down your backups, then that's where cloud immutability, object lock, sometimes it's referred to as worm, right? Once read many, storage comes in. This is what many cloud storage vendors provide. This is sort of like a time lock on a vault, right? Where you can lock down a set of objects in cloud storage, so they cannot be deleted before a certain date. If somebody would even authenticate to get at those backups and they try to delete them, they would say, nope, can't do it. Traditionally, things like immutability was used for things like legal holds on data where they're locked down during a kind of a legal case. But we see it more and more being used for actual backups where, MSPs are concerned about, not only the data locally, but data in the cloud and whether or not somebody is going to delete it, right? So if your software supports it, then consider using it. Understanding your customers' RPOs and RTOs, this allows you to back up what you need using the right type of backup. So we talk a lot about RPOs. This is your restore point objectives. RTOs, your restore time objectives, because these 2 concepts are going to help you decide on what is the right type of backup to run or the type of service that's needed for that customer. To protect the various systems. So the RPO is going to tell you things like how frequently data needs to be backed up. So let's say we use an example of a relational database like Microsoft SQL Server. If the customer tells you, you know what, we're a highly transactional environment and we can't withstand more than 15 minutes of data loss. Well, what does that mean to you? That means they have a restore point objective of 15 minutes and you will be running transaction log backups every 15 minutes. If they tell you, you know what, for our employees out there that are creating original content and documents and stuff like that, we don't want to lose more than 2 hours of work. That just means you'll be backing up whatever files you need to every 2 hours. The restore time objectives tell you really how long the customer can be down before there's a severe impact to the business. And that's going to help you decide on what type of services you provide. If they tell you, we need to be up in 15 minutes, you may have to be looking at a business continuity type solution, which may cost more money, but that may be what the customer needs. If the customer tells you, we need data restored within, 2 hours, and you can do that without business continuity, then that's fine because that may lower your costs while still meeting these restore time objectives. These RPOs and RTOs should be carefully negotiated with your customers and should be in your MSAs, your master service agreements, right? So everybody knows exactly what's expected by your customers, right? Now this is kind of separate from ransomware in some contexts, but also it has to do with ransomware because that's when you're likely to be doing restores. So in order to make sure the SLAs that you've negotiated are met, they should be documented and they should be discussed with your customers in advance. at least so they're aware. I mean, they may tell you they need to be up and running in 15 minutes. You may say, no, it's going to take us an hour. We need 2 hours, whatever it is. But as long as you've discussed it with them in advance and they expectations are set, they will not be surprised when it takes 2 hours if that's what it's going to take. So test your backup and restores. You may be able to do this through your software or through just some manual testing. It depends on the vendor and the type of software you're using, but you need to make sure you understand how to do it, how to do image backup, how to do image restores, how to restore a virtual machine, how to do a bare metal restore, how to get back files, how to restore files that were backed up in a previous date range. Whatever the case is, you should have all of this documented. You shouldn't always rely on the vendor documentation. It should be something in your own documentation, in your own format, so you understand it and you've tested it. Document how to restore key systems. Every customer is going to have a different set of key systems slightly, unless you're in a really strong vertical where a lot of the services and software is the same. But so review these procedures when your customers get new servers, when they add new infrastructure, or when something's removed. I would say a minimum annually to make sure nothing's changed, but certainly when there's a material change. They're a dental office, they get a brand new piece of hardware and software in there. Find out where it sits in the, when does that piece of software need to be restored? Can you be offline with that one? Where does it fit in the restore procedures that I'm going to be documenting? And then, of course, with backups, I mentioned, business continuity versus, non-business continuity. Use more than one solution if needed. We talked to a lot of MSPs, and a lot of them use more than one backup solution, because they have customers of different needs. I want to make sure that they can provide what their customers need, but at a price that makes sense, so they're not overcharging them, and so they can maximize their profitability. So the last part is really about remediation. This is a very, very high level slide. I'll just mention it briefly, and then I want to kind of wrap up and get to the giveaway. When you're dealing with a ransomware remediation, you'll definitely, obviously, want to identify the affected endpoints, right? You may, if you're considering about re-imaging them, you may want to consider backing up any affected systems, or at least one, to avoid removing evidence. If you're going to need the evidence for the authorities, if you're going to need evidence for cyber insurance, consider backing up any of the affected systems before they're re-imaged and restored. You'll need to identify any compromised accounts and delete them if needed, or any new accounts that showed up possibly. When you have infected machines, you're going to want to turn them off, get them off the network so they're not communicating with everything else. If you're not sure exactly how to do that or what's infected, you may end up turning everything off temporarily until you have some time to go through it. Once you've identified at least one of the infected machines, you'll want to identify what ransomware family you're looking at. So look for a decryptor. I'll show you some sites that you can use. I'm sure there's a lot of others that you probably know about. Review and improve your security training. If something got in through, say, a spear phishing attack, maybe you'll need to do updated training there. And then obviously you'll have to remove or re-image those affected systems, restore your data, and then perform a root cause analysis. This is your post-mortem that helps you understand exactly what went wrong, what went right, what are we going to do in the future to improve this process. It's probably going to happen. Like I said earlier, it's more likely that it's going to happen than it's not, despite whatever efforts we make. So when you do have to deal with a ransomware recovery, document everything that you did and figure out what didn't work right, because not everything will be perfect. That way you can improve your procedures. So very quickly about MSP 360, I'm going to spend 30 seconds on this slide. We have a whole set of software that we designed ourselves from the ground up for the MSP community. So we have powerful backup and disaster recovery software. We also have our new RMM and our secure remote desktop product, which we just rebranded as Connect. I probably should have an updated graphic there. So we can do RMM. The RMM product comes with our Connect product, but if you only need secure remote access and you don't need our RMM, we do sell Connect separately. One of the nice things about our software is we allow you to back up to any public cloud storage vendor. I know somebody mentioned us supporting Wasabi. We do support Wasabi, Amazon's AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Backblaze B2, as well as S3 compatible sites out there, and of course local backups as well. And we can back up your customers' Windows, Linux, Mac OS, hosted solutions like Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, as well as applications like SQL Server and Exchange, and of course virtual host level backups for VMware and Hyper-V. So there's a lot of great stuff out there with licenses that start at only $5 a month for desktops. If you don't want to open up your own accounts for cloud storage and you prefer the simplification of a single bill, we can resell you Wasabi storage and AWS S3 standard at exactly what you would pay for it from those vendors, with actually some benefits on top of that. And we will give you a single bill if that's what you prefer. So I mentioned useful links. I'm not going to go through them all here, but just mention what's on these slides. This is some links to the CISA website. This is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, as well as the NIST website. Also, the NIST has a very specific area for ransomware tips and tactics, including, you see that little kind of piece of a poster on the right that I pasted on the right. These are things that you can have out. You can, post them internally or put them at your customer sites if you're worried. As well as a really interesting article, the Public Power Cyber Incident Response Playbook. This is something the NIST, I believe, put together to protect power plants. Probably not the exact type of customer you're working with, but the reason I put it there is because there's a lot of really good information in that PDF, so definitely check it out. And I mentioned the Sonic Wall report that's linked down there if you feel like reading it over. There's phishing simulators out there. There's free ones. There's even some new ones being offered by Microsoft with Office 365. Their attack simulation training that's available if you're using Microsoft 365. There's free phishing risk tests and some paid services out there. So check them out or just add them to the list if you're managing a list. Ransomware decryptor sites. Your security company might have some ransomware decryptors. There are some dedicated sites here. Others you can see like MCSoft, Avast, McAfee, Bitdefender. These are security companies who also manage and allow you to upload an infected file or an encrypted file, and it will help you try to figure out which family it is and then give you access to a decryptor. So at least you know, and you can find a decryptor. If you can decrypt this stuff yourself, all the power to you. You can do some of that work on your own. All right, so
Got a
I want to
question.
thank everybody for coming today. We have 2 minutes left, and I wanted to leave more time. We are giving away a MetaQuest 2. I think that's the new name for them. We still call them Oculus. I like the name
Yeah.
Oculus.
One question.
So are you going to announce the winner, Dan?
Yeah. There's one question that popped up here from Carrie about
Oh, yeah, sure.
discovery capabilities. If there's anything coming soon.
I'm sorry, but network discovery, did you say?
E-discovery capabilities.
Oh, you mean like document management, that type of stuff, indexing stuff?
Yeah.
Is that what they mean by e-discovery?
Yeah. Carrie Wagner had
If
asked
that's what they mean, then
email
probably
archiving.
not. I mean, we don't. Yeah, if you're talking about like e-discovery, my understanding of e-discovery and some companies I've worked with in the past, this is what is used for, legal cases and stuff like that. They throw in a lot of data where it's fully indexed and it allows you to search for stuff. We don't look at your stuff, right? Your data is backed up and the data travels fully encrypted from your customers' endpoints to your own cloud storage. You could even use your customers' cloud storage if you want. So nothing travels through an
Sure.
MSP 360 server. And so we don't really see it. And I don't think we're going to be offering any ability to index that data so you can do searching from within those files. But it's a good question. And maybe something I'll bring up with the team. And it could be something that we offer in the future. But right now, I don't think there's any plans for it.
Perfect. And as far as the winner, I just ran a prize randomizer, and actually just for the purpose of transparency, I'll show the screen here. Let me just share the
Yeah, do you need
screen.
me to stop sharing?
Yeah, I think I got you there.
Oh, you got me. Okay.
There we go. So
Ooh, look at that.
everybody in there, we got Chris Perthel. Chris Perthel. Yeah, look at all the names in the circle there. Um, Chris
I don't
Perthel.
know if he's a Perthel or a Perthel. Either
Perthel.
way, Chris,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah. Woo.
I don't know. I don't have a Quest 2 and I would like one. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Dan will get us your contact information and we'll get that sent out to you. So you have it.
Awesome.
And
Great
all right.
stuff,
So I think we
David.
had a really good turnout today.
Yeah.
I hope those of you who attended today found it mildly informative, I hope. But give any feedback, good or bad. I don't mind hearing it. I can always, if it's bad, I'll update and give you guys what you need next time. So
Yeah.
let Dan know what you thought. If I missed anything that you would like to see discussed in a future webcast, I'm happy to do that. But I do thank you for taking the time, spending an hour with us today. I find these topics important, so I was glad I could share them with you. I hope you got something out of it as well. So thanks.
Yeah, David, as always, we appreciate your knowledge and taking the time to share with everyone. And we will be getting email out to everybody with a copy of the slides as well as a link to the replay. So feel free to share that with other people on your team or other MSP friends that you have. With that being said, everybody, once again, thank you very much for your time today. David, thank you as well. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thanks,
Peace
Dan.
out. Thank you.